Hello to everyone tuning into my team selection video who's about to skip straight to the end, and hello to the rest of you who are tuning in maybe once again to another video, although around 12% of you are actually subscribed. So if you're one of that small percentage, thank you very much for choosing to watch another one of my videos. But if you're not, what are you playing at? Make sure to hit the subscribe button. We're trying to hit 7,000 subscribers just as soon as possible, basically, so that would really help me out. And if you do consider leaving a like on the video as well, if you do enjoy it, that would be massively appreciated. But thank you for choosing to watch my team selection video. Out of about the 10,000 you've probably got in your subscription box today if you're subscribed to a decent number of FPL channels. So we won't waste any more time, and we'll get into talking about how I'm inside the top 100k at the moment, in fact inside the top 80k, and how I'm aiming to get inside the top 10,000 in the world this week in Game Week 3. So how is it that I've come to be in this position in the first place? My rank is looking rather healthy inside the first two game weeks. Well, it's largely thanks to three players, and those are Estupinian, Mbomo, and then Mitoma as well, who are the three that I don't think many people own all of, that I started the season with, and have kind of been my differentials as a three, performing really well over the first two game weeks. And that meant that I had a really nice score in Game Week 1, and in Game Week 2, a score of 64 took me up inside the top 100k. I also had Mohamed Salah as my captain, so he scored 10 points in Game Week 2. And yeah, overall, little gains like that have helped me reach this rank where I'm really pleased with it right now, and I'm hoping that my luck may continue and that I can make some decent decisions over the next couple of game weeks that can hopefully maybe even improve on that rank. So yeah, Turner in goal didn't really seem to make a difference over Johnston in the end, but Estupinian in defence performed really well, as mentioned, with those other two in midfield being the stars of the show last game week. João Pedro up front being the main disappointment, coming off the bench and getting yellow carded for 0, but we basically just need to have a look at my team selection for next game week, because that's probably what you guys are here for, and what you're most interested in is what is my transfer plan with 2 free transfers and 0.5 million in the bank with this team you're looking at right now. Well, in goal this week, we're obviously going to be reverting the goalkeepers back. We're not going to be starting Turner again. We're in fact going to have Sam Johnston in goal. He's going up against Brentford and has 3.3 predicted points for this game week. In defence, we're then lining up with the same back three, really. I have got Gabriel still in my team, who is another issue that we need to discuss in just a moment. But overall, I'm really happy with these defenders. Brighton have some trickier fixtures coming up, but I've discussed in previous videos this week how I'm more than happy to hold Estupinian, really, and actually start him, to be honest, in a lot of those games too, with how attacking he looks at the moment. Until I see otherwise, and I see Brighton struggling more to get goals, then I'll consider benching Estupinian. But for now, he's still a lock in my starting 11. He's predicted 3.9 points this game week, my second highest predicted defender behind Chilwell on 4.8, which is miles ahead, really, 0.9 being the difference. And then Henry on 3.8, which is really quite a nice total for him, to be honest. Didn't expect him to be quite as close behind Estupinian. But I have got 2 defenders in that Crystal Palace-Brentford game, so maybe I'll be hoping to come away with 2 clean sheets from that and a 0-0, although I do not have much hope of that being the end result. I am still choosing to start Henry. I think he looked really attacking in Game Week 1, where they played a 5-back formation. I'm not that sure that's going to continue at all. In Game Week 2, they played a 4-back, so I'm not overly excited about getting attacking returns from Henry. I just do probably think he's a better pick than Gabriel right now, but I may revert those, and we'll discuss my benching dilemma as we get down there onto the bench. In midfield, there isn't really such a dilemma. There's more a dilemma about which transfer I'm going to make this week, and this is the situation and predicament that I'm in as things stand. Mohamed Salah goes up against Newcastle this week, and then he's got Aston Villa next week, which is a rather tricky fixture too, I'd say. So my main thoughts at the moment are to actually go without Mo Salah and move him on to Phil Foden as my transfer this week at 7.6 million. With 0.5 million in the bank, I'll discuss some of the other moves I would have liked to make if maybe I had a little bit more than that money. But there were things that I was considering that I've been priced out of this week that I held off doing because I wanted the more information as we get nearer the deadline and to hear things in the press conferences. And I do sometimes value that more than getting transfers done early in the week and maybe having to sacrifice a little bit in terms of what I think are the ideal moves on a Tuesday or Wednesday to hear more later in the week. And, you know, maybe things like injuries can happen. Reece James's news came out rather late last game week. Stuff like that can happen again, even with less less injury-prone players. So news like that is very valuable. We've already seen it happen with João Pedro yesterday, in fact, which we'll touch on in just a moment. But the rest of the midfield, Rashford and Saka, very underwhelming so far this season, really. Saka even kind of losing penalties now, but I'm very happy to hold the pair of them for at least one more week, with Nottingham Forest and Fulham at home respectively. And then Mbeumo and Matoma, who as of right now are not going anywhere. I think maybe if you don't own Matoma at the moment, it might be a little bit late to jump on the boat. There is still the risk of rotation in that Brighton front line, although Enciso is now out injured, so I suppose that's one threat off someone like João Pedro, who's trying to play in that role behind the striker. But I still think Matoma is definitely looking like he'll probably be rotated with European football coming up in competition. I'll probably be shifting him on in the next few game weeks, but very happy to hold him through this home game against West Ham. And Mbeumo, of course, is going nowhere, and I think the majority of people who don't own him are trying to get him into their teams this week. He has had 2 penalties in the first 2 game weeks, which of course isn't going to continue. He won't have 38 penalties across the course of the season, but that's why you have penalty takers in FPL, and why that is so advantageous to have them in your side is because you have the chance of getting those spot kicks. Even if your player doesn't have a great game, they can get a kick from 12 yards and be able to get some points with relative ease from there, unless your name's Mo Salah, in which case you might need a rebound to do so. And then finally up front, we've of course got Erling Haaland, who's going to be taking the captain's armband this week. No dilemmas or thoughts about that really. 7.7 predicted points for him in Man City's trip to Sheffield United. And then finally, as mentioned, João Pedro is the other striker in my team, who is now back at 5.5 million, his original starting price. It doesn't affect my selling value because in FPL, if a player goes up by 0.2 million, that's when you gain 0.1 million in their selling value. It's rather confusing, and I'm probably not the best person to explain it, but basically you get 0.1 million in terms of selling value every 0.2 they go up. So Pedro would have had to go up to 5.7 for me to sell him for 5.6, if that makes sense. But the selling price is still just whatever they're priced at. So João Pedro at 5.5, and at 5.6, I would have been able to sell him for 5.5, no matter if he's at 5.5 or 5.6. I've explained that terribly. Maybe you were following along, but yeah, there's better people to explain that than me. I can still sell João Pedro for 5.5 million, basically, is my predicament. And with 0.5 in the bank, I can't afford someone like Kavissa, who I was definitely contemplating having in my side. So that's the stats at the moment. 0.5 million in the bank, 2 free transfers. My bench is looking like this with Gabriel at for sub at the moment. But like I said, with him and Henry, it's another one of those benching dilemmas that I've had kind of once or twice already this season, where I'm not sure who I'm quite going to start. I started Henry over Gabriel in game week 2, and that went rather well for me. Maybe that's playing on my mind a little bit. But I think that's kind of just one of the things that I'll decide with my gut a little bit nearer the deadline, perhaps. The main thing that I need to make my mind up on is which transfer I'm going to make, and the transfers that I did consider earlier in the week were to do Gabriel when he was at 5 million, down to Gusto at 4.0. That leaves me with 1.5 million in the bank, and then I could have upgraded João Pedro to Nicholas Jackson at 7 million. However, Gabriel dropped down to 4.9 million. That was kind of the price change that I had to eat on the chin and take those transfers kind of being priced out of those through the rest of the game week. So I can no longer afford that, basically. And like I said, Vissa rose very on early in the week, up to 6.1 million. So I can't afford to do a straight move of Pedro to Vissa either. The fact that Enciso now looks like he's out with an injury, I think it's a knee injury that looks like it could be a little bit more long-term than perhaps first thought, does lean towards keeping Pedro for one more week at least and holding him through this game. And that's what's making me think that Salah to Foden might be the best option. Now, Salah, as I mentioned, he's got Newcastle this week, which is a pretty tough game, although Salah can definitely perform in those. And then he's got Aston Villa in the game after that. The fixtures get a little bit nicer further on, and from around game week 8 or game week 9, they really improve. But what my thoughts are to do Salah down to Phil Foden, who's at 7.6 million right now, have him in my team as my midfield 5 over the next 2 game weeks at least, and then just have a load of money banked, basically, and be able to afford João Pedro up to whatever striker I want to go for. Even if I went for Jackson, I could then afford to get Salah back in, but not for Phil Foden, instead for Marcus Rashford at a later date. So that's my current thinking. By the time I might want a Liverpool attacker back, I may well go for someone like a Luis Diaz anyway. But right now, I think my most sensible decision is just to use the one free transfer, do Salah down to Foden, have all that money banked for 1 week, have 2 free transfers again heading into game week 4, and then I'll be able to reassess which striker I want, because I'm still very torn between going for whoever it is up front, Nicholas Jackson, Visser, Alvarez. I'm still undecided on which second striker I want to have alongside Erling Haaland. When Brighton's fixtures turn tough, which they do next week, that's when I'm going to want to remove João Pedro. So I know one of my transfers next week will probably be João Pedro out, and the other one will also most likely be Gabriel out, because I don't think he's going to start any more kind of games going forward. But this week, due to Tomiyasu's suspension and due to Timber being out with an injury, as we know, it looks like Zinchenko will come back in as that kind of inverting left wing back, and Gabriel will play in one of the centre-back roles this week, just because Arteta is kind of running out of options at this point, and he's almost being forced into playing Gabriel as much as it seems that he doesn't want to play him. So yeah, those are my kind of thoughts this week. I'm not really interested in making a bench transfer like Kabore to Gusto, just because I don't think that there's that much of a gain in starting Gusto over Henry or Gabriel this week, although I definitely have considered that. There's also a slight hint of wanting to leave my other third Chelsea slot open if I do want to bring in Jackson. I've then got Jackson and Chilwell. Maybe I'll end up wanting Sterling in midfield or something like that. Maybe even Robert Sanchez in goal, because there is a slight risk with Johnston that Dean Henderson might join Crystal Palace, and then there could be some competition there. Maybe there's a slim chance Johnston doesn't end up being first choice anymore, and I want to make the switch over to Robert Sanchez, who's equally kind of in the situation where he might not be first choice with Chelsea signing a new keeper of their own. There is another goalkeeper I like. I really like the look of Flecken, but there's another predicament there where I don't want to have a Brentford triple up of Flecken, Henry and Mbeumo and then end up wanting Visser as my second striker. So I'm kind of stuck for where I'd want to move for goalkeepers, which is why I'm very keen to hang on to Johnston at the moment. Crystal Palace also look very good for defensive data, as they kind of did towards the back end of last season, and in fact, over the course of last season, they had rather good defensive data, and I'm hoping they can continue that into the next few fixtures, even though this Brentford game, I've not got too much hope of a clean sheet. Further on, I'm rather happy holding Johnston as long as he remains first choice. In terms of you guys and what your transfer plans are, I want you to comment your teams down below, and if you want, I can give you some help of my own, give you some of my thoughts and feedback on your own teams. I've been doing that over the last 3 videos from the last 3 days. We've been daily uploading this week, so if you have enjoyed the videos, make sure to leave a thumbs up, and I have been responding to every single comment, which has taken me a fair bit of time, but a like would really help show your appreciation for all that. If you want to consider supporting the channel even more, you can send a super thanks, or you can join the members club using the link down below in the description or the join button. What you get from that is access to our private group in the Discord server, where you know you'll have one-to-one interaction with me throughout the course of the season for help and advice with your teams and transfers, looking short-term, but also more long-term as well, with advice there. And yeah, you also get a badge by your name and all loads of other cool perks as well if you'd like to consider supporting the channel through, giving a bit of money. Basically, that's the thing that costs. But I'm happy to reply to comments, as many as I can, down below there for absolutely free, because, what my advice is worth is never for certain. And in football, changes so much that I don't want to be taking people's money and not knowing that I can improve their teams. But if you'd like to be part of that private group anyway and would find it a nice community, then the option is there for you to do so. If you'd like to support the channel, with me going back to uni, I need all the help I can get, really, and motivation to keep making these videos, because it does become quite tough with my schedule. But I am fully rambling on now, and none of you guys are probably that interested in what I'm saying. Thank you very much for tuning into the video. Make sure, as I mentioned, to subscribe to the channel if you are new around here and aren't too bored of me yet. We are trying to hit that 7,000 subscriber mark, which we would really like to do so in the near future. You can join the Discord server that I mentioned for absolutely free down below by using the link in the description. But I'll wish you the best of luck for Game Week 3 with your own teams. Any final dilemmas, leave them down below in the comments. I'll try to get back to you at least before the deadline, as I don't do a stream of my own. But there's great streams on YouTube already. So I'll catch you in the next one with my videos for Game Week 4. The best of luck for Game Week 3 with your own sides. Take care and goodbye.